Okay, I see 25 people in the room. Can you let me know that you're back in? Are we here? We're back? Okay. So this is what our teachers have been dealing with. This is what our teachers have been dealing with for the last 3 months. Can you imagine? I don't know what happened. It just knocked us off, and I think we're back at it. Okay. So can we go back when we were knocked off? I think you must have blown up the platform by telling me the names of your teachers if you felt comfortable, and also giving me the one word you would use to describe that person who got you here and made you want to be where you are. So we were hearing passionate, we were hearing compassionate, we were hearing knowledgeable. And then the next thing I want to ask you is, would you consider, is passionate an attitude or a skill? Is demanding an attitude or a skill? Is tenacious an attitude or a skill? Is love an attitude or a skill? So, for example, I would think that committed is an attitude, but I also think you can learn to be committed. There's some things you can do. Resilient, Dr. Amanda Morrison, resilient. Yeah, and teachers are going to have to be more resilient than ever. Would you consider resilience to be an attitude or a skill? So some things you just work with in terms of attitude, and some things are skillful, and you can really like get in the practice room and do the work. We call that woodshedding the parts. Creative, that's a new one we haven't seen yet. Encouraging, absolutely. They're demanding, they set high standards, but they're encouraging. That's a word that comes up frequently when I ask these questions. Yeah. So there you go. So thinking about that person and that one word you used to describe, and if you haven't gotten it in there because we got bumped off, keep going with that if you want to. Skills and attitudes have been, you got ahead of me, John. There you go. Thank you for that. Yeah, skills and attitudes eventually become behaviors, and caring becomes behavior. If you really work at it and you really dedicate yourself to it, it becomes a behavior. If I put this up, tell me what you see. How many businesses do you recommend, do you see, excuse me, and put in there what you recognize them for. And I'll give you one. I see the apple and I immediately think computers. Can you list some that you see in this next slide and tell me just the one word that comes to your mind when you see the apple? Starbucks, coffee, amen, right. Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, there you go. Yeah, franchises. Yeah, but be specific about it. Adidas, shoes, Amazon shopping, yeah. McDonald's, fries, Nike, shoes, just do it. Yeah. So do you know what these are called? What are these logos called? Starts with the letter B, one syllable. Nikon, camera, IKEA, furniture that I don't know how to put together. Pepsi, not as good as Coke. In the South, we call everything Coke, by the way. Yeah, Apple quality and creativity. Yeah, their logos. John got the word we're looking for, brand. Absolutely. So these are brands. And when you see this brand, if I see that green lady with the crown on, I immediately know that there's going to be great coffee within shouting distance of when I see that brand. And so it becomes recognizable. The Golden Arches were probably one of the first brands that really became national, and it happened at a time when TV became really prevalent. And so that branding of the Golden Arches, you don't even have to see McDonald's. You just see that sign anywhere in the world. I mean, when we were in Japan I was judging with a bunch of drum guys, and they were all excited that we could, excuse me, this is not a slam on drum guys. These are my friends. I love them. But they were all excited that we could go to McDonald's in Japan, and we didn't see the sign. We couldn't read it in Japanese, but we sure knew the golden arches. So anywhere in the world you see that sign, you know what that means. Same thing with that Nike swoosh or the MasterCard. Yeah, I see that in the corner every month. Yeah. So what's your brand? What is your brand? If and you don't, this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to start typing that in. But I would encourage you to start thinking about that right now. You're setting your brand right now every day with everything that you do. If any of you've ever had the opportunity to work with Steve Davis at UMKC, he is fantastic. He's a fabulous musician and a fabulous human being. And this quote from him really resonates with us, I think. Excellence leaves the room when casual enters. So when I say the name Robert or when I say Cecilia Clark, I immediately think of this great band director in the Atlanta area who's made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And so I know what her brand is. It's one of excellence, musical excellence, excellence in everything that she does. And I guarantee you she could move anywhere in the United States and get a job teaching band because she's that well known and that great at what she does. So I wouldn't presume to say that you should be doing anything. My therapist said don't should on yourself. Get it? Yeah. So I paid $125 for that. You just got it free. But 3 books you might want to add to your reading list: Lynchpin, Seth Godin, Grit, Angela Duckworth, and Drive, Daniel Pink. Those would be 3 great books for you to add to your reading list. And I'm going to hit on the high spots of those and hopefully link those to your brand so that you'll be thinking about that as you move through the last year or so that you're in school. Because right now is where you're formulating that brand. And when you start to interview for jobs, people are going to know your reputation, your brand is going to precede you. And don't think they're just going to call on your reference list. They're not. They're going to call everybody who could possibly know you. So the definition of a linchpin, and I highlighted some words in this. Shoot. The most important member of a group or a part of a system that holds together the other members or parts and makes possible for things to operate as intended. So a linchpin is a little bitty thing that may seem not important, but if you take it out of the apparatus or out of the team, everything immediately falls apart. So imagine if you got the brand of a linchpin, what people would think about you and what your principal would think about you and what your colleagues would think about you. Do you know who those, like, think about it in your world right now. There's somebody who's a go-to. Somebody once said, if you want to get something done, ask the busiest person, right? Because they're the people. In any organization, 90% of the work is done by 10% of the people. No, that's not a academic study or research study, but we know that to be true. So the premise of Seth Godin's book, The Linchpin, is that and I'll just let you read this. I'm not going to read it to you, but I would ask you to look at the very last sentence and think about what is the difference between humanity and compliance. If I have enough apples, Max, my Shih Tzu, who is hard-headed, will do what I want him to do. He will comply. But that he can't. There's not the humanity factor, and that's the difference. As a linchpin on the faculty and in the building and in your school and in your students' lives, you become indispensable. And it's not for selfish reasons. It's to help other people operate more efficiently. And that's what being a linchpin is all about. Grit. So if you've read the book Grit, or we talk about grit in education right now, and teachers need grit. Oh gosh, if they've ever needed it, they need it right now. But take just a minute and process this slide. I'll just go ahead and freely admit mathematics was not in my wheelhouse, bailiwick. I did enough to get by and survive. But that last, skill plus effort equals achievement. And that's what you're going to want from your students, and that's what you're going to want from yourselves. Jump in, ask any questions. We don't have to wait till the last 10 minutes, by the way. If I don't get through these slides at all, I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about you getting what you need and getting the answers to your questions. So you all talked about passion with your teachers. You all talked about perseverance and resilience with your teachers. You all talked about commitment, dedication, skillful. There you go. Demanding, that, it all equates with achievement. Daniel Pink says that there are 3 keys to internal motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Now, I would submit to you that you have achieved a certain level of mastery at this point in your career on your musical instrument, or you wouldn't be about to graduate from college. A, you wouldn't have gotten into school, and B, you wouldn't be about to graduate, right? Yeah. How do we get from good to great? Like, how do we get to the Midwest Clinic level? That is absolutely a beautiful question, Tom. And you can get from 0 to 50 pretty easily. 50 to 80 becomes incrementally harder. 80 to 90 is harder. 90 to 100 is even harder than that. And so we're going to talk about exactly what you're talking about as we go a little bit further about how you can move from good to great. So that autonomy, the mastery is part of that. And purpose. What is your reason? What is your purpose for getting out of bed? And this is not about me. But I'll share with you my purpose. For a long time, it was teaching in the classroom because it really mattered to me. And then it became teaching at the collegiate level so that I could help grow the next generation of people who were going to be great teachers in the classroom. And now it's about sustaining teachers and growing that next generation of teachers so that we have an exponential army of people who are going to go out and give children music because we know it changes their lives. So it's having that purpose. What is your purpose for getting out of bed every day, and what gets you there? And then autonomy means that you can make your own decision, voice and choice. If you didn't get to hear the SEL session yesterday, that was in the string track, but it was not necessarily for just strings. Be sure you go back and review that SEL. That may be the best session we have this week. Well, one of the very best, because that intentionality of SEL in your classroom and giving the students autonomy and voice and choice. How many have you been in classes? And again, raise your hand. Oh, wait, we can't do that. I'm pretty sure I know the answer. We've all been in classes where we felt like teachers really respected voice and choice. And we've all been in classes where we felt like they didn't respect voice and choice. And I think we all have consensus on which class we felt like we thrived in, and we were more happy and more those shining eyes that Richard Saucedo talked about in his session yesterday. That's when you start to see that, when students have autonomy, mastery, and purpose. It's the same thing as teachers, as adults, as people, and even as students, providing that autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So here's some assumptions about strengths. I didn't put it in the reading list, but if there's a book called Strengths Finders, the Gallup Poll Strengths Finders, it's $20. You take a 100-question survey at the end, and it'll tell you what the strengths are, the 5 strengths that you possess at this point in your life. Now that'll change a little bit depending on where you are and what you've been doing, but it's pretty telling. And it gives you a lot of information about strengths. And some people think that strengths, you want to be around people who have the same strengths. I would submit to you, you want to be around people who have different strengths, because somebody had to do the Strengths Finder, got to do the Strengths Finder in student teaching. Yeah. So creating a team where people have varied strengths means that the team will be stronger. And when you're choosing your colleagues in college and university, when you're choosing who's going to be on your recital, you may want to choose people with different strengths from you. When you're picking your leadership teams as a teacher, think about getting students on that leadership team who have different strengths from each other, and their strengths vary. educate them on what their strengths are, and then assign jobs based on the strengths so that people flourish and are happy. Fixing weakness prevents failure. Strengths development leads to excellence. How many of you have been in rehearsal where you felt like all we're doing is fixing weaknesses? Or you've had teachers that approach it where we're just trying to fix the things that are wrong. And then the flip side of that is when you're in that rehearsal where you feel like the strengths are growing, they're developing, and all of a sudden it becomes this cycle and it starts to permeate the whole ensemble. And then you start to see those shining eyes that Benjamin Zander talks about in the book, The Art of Possibility. That creates the growth mindset where students want to achieve a higher level. And you don't have to say, on Thursday, you have to play the A flat scale 2 octaves, tongued up and slurred down. They'll come in and play it 3 octaves if you let them, just because they got excited about wanting to be better. And that's when they stop rolling their eyes at you too, by the way. So I want to encourage you to jealously protect your brand. Build your brand right now. Be thinking about everything you do. Are you known for someone who gets to class early? Are you known for someone? I'll tell you, a student, when I was working on my doctorate at South Carolina, Bob Cotter, got to rehearsal every single day early for wind ensemble and helped the graduate assistants set up the chairs in the stands. He didn't have to do that. He had everything in the world to do as a senior music major. And yet that was a place where he saw a need and he helped fill it. And it just makes a difference when you become known as that person. This is a way to level up and separate yourself from other people. Being visible and making sure that people know what you do well. That doesn't mean you have to wear a sign that says I'm great. It does mean you have to be visible and be out in the field and get to know people and not be afraid to introduce yourself and look to make someone else feel more comfortable. And they're going to find out about the good work you do because it's again, it'll be palpable. Know the difference between needs and wants. Boy, have we found that out in the last few weeks. What I need and what I want have been very different in the last few weeks. And then some people like to say this, under promise and over deliver, but I would say set dates and then be sure you ship your product. If you're in one of the service organizations like Phi Mu Alpha or SAI or KK Psi or TBS, any of those, I'm sure we've got a lot of people who are involved in service organizations, and you have a project due for that. Making sure that you set those dates, you'll have it, and then it gets there, if anything, early, but never late. Ship your product on time. How many, we've all had things that we've been waiting for Amazon and it didn't get there on time. And we know it's different right now. But normally when I'm as an Amazon Prime member, if they tell me it's going to be here in 48 hours, it's going to be here in 48 hours. And that's one of the reasons that I use them. Yeah. So setting those dates and shipping those products. Anybody else? Questions, comments? So my dad was a band director. I call myself a double BDK. My volunteer, yeah, we're going to talk about that too, Philip. Volunteer to help at the county district region events. You'll begin networking with veteran teachers. That's the best thing you can possibly do. If you serve as a room monitor for district auditions or all-state auditions, you get to hear every single student who auditions. You understand what the bar is coming out of school, knowing, wow, this is how good you have to be to make all-state on clarinet or saxophone or flute or whatever. And it's a great opportunity to network with veteran teachers. And we're going to talk about that too. So my dad was a band director, and I'll give you a real brief version. When I first started teaching, Daddy was in John Painter's band at Northwestern University back in the 50s, years and years ago. And some of you may have heard of Mr. Painter and some of you may not have, but he was an icon. If you think of the people who are icons in our world today, like Jerry Junkin or Kevin Settertall or Mallory Thompson or any of these people, Eugene Corporon, Ray Kramer, he was of that ilk at the time, and Dad was in his band. And I was struggling with a piece of music, and I said, Dad, I just can't get this second movement to lay right. What do you think? He said, I think you need to call John and ask him. I was like, what? Call Mr. Painter? Oh, I can't do that. He was like, no, here's his number, call him. And I called him. I was never his student. He didn't know me. And he spent an hour on the phone helping me figure out how to make this Siciliano have a lilt to it. And so, what I would submit to you is no one got there alone in this profession. The best, most successful people are the most willing to help you. So be fearless when you ask for help. Find a mentor. Nobody knows it. And here's what happens. You're so scared somebody's going to know that you're not good yet or that you don't know what you're doing. They're so fearful. And then by the time you realize you need help, it's too late. You're already drowning. So just know there's going to come a time in your career, the first year of teaching, that you go, wow, this is really real. I don't know everything I need to know. I need some help. And hear me in the back of your voice going, congratulations, you're a real teacher. You've crossed a threshold and you can do this. So here's my little birdie. When you're thinking that question and you're wondering, think about that little bird. Seal him in your mind's eye right now. A closed mouth does not get fed. You got to open that mouth and you got to be willing to ask for help. Have any of you read any Brene Brown? If you haven't, you might want to put her on your reading list as well. I'm not going to read this to you, but I'll give you about 30 seconds to read it and process yourself. And again, I'm going to ask you to focus on that very last sentence. The danger of tying your self-worth to being a helper is feeling shame when you have to ask for help. Offering help is courageous and compassionate, but so is asking for help. Offering help is courageous and compassionate, but so is asking for help. If you're courageous enough to be willing to ask for help, and you're compassionate enough to tell that person, gee, I respect and honor you enough that I need your opinion and I need your help. Just think what you've just given them. Agree, disagree, comments? Jump in there. And here's another one. The greatest good you can do for another is not just to share your riches, but to reveal in him his own. The greatest good you can do for another is not to share your own riches, but to reveal to him or her his own. Somebody asked, what is the title of the book by? The last one I read by her is Daring Greatly, but she has several. I think maybe The Gifts of Imperfection. I think she might have a new one. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think Imperfection might be the most recent one. Many MEAs, many state MEAs have mentor programs. So do the National Band Association. That's Philip. That's got to be Philip Riggs, Grammy Teacher of the Year. Yeah, yeah, and Philip's got it right. There are many states have mentor programs. You can get into a formal mentor program. I know we do that in Tennessee as well, and you also can do it informally. So I want to show you a little bit of data. I promise I won't put you on a data hamster wheel. I cross my heart, I will not do that to you. But I want to show you that what you're going to do makes a difference. This is a survey that we did in Nashville, Tennessee, and we broke down the graduation rates by ethnicity based on how many years of music the students were in. African American students with no music went from 63% on-time graduation, 1 year of music to 82%, 2 years of music to 93%. African American children in Nashville, Tennessee, on-time graduations go from 63 to 93% if they're in music more than 1 year in high school. White, 56 to 90. Latino, 52% on-time graduation, to 89% if they're in music more than 1 year in high school. You want to talk to me about the value of mariachi programs? There you go. Asian children, 78% to 93%. So if you ever wonder whether you're changing students' lives, the answer is yes. And this is before you get to the expressive component and the SEL that Bob Morrison just talked about in his keynote. So when you combine this with the SEL piece, guys, that's magic. Gals, that's magic. You're changing lives. So I want to tell you a story about a young man, Rex Chape, and his teacher, Linda Friend. And I'll try to do it without getting choked up. Linda Friend was one of my modest teachers here in Nashville. I called her modest teacher because everything she touches turns to gold. And Rex was a little boy who was taking a trombone lesson in her room one day, and they were getting ready for solo and ensemble, and he set the trombone down. Some of you may have heard this story. But he set the trombone down, he looked at her and he said, "Miss Friend, I suck at this." And she said she thought for just a minute, and there was the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. And she goes, "Yeah, Rex, you do." She said, but the angel took over. "Here's the good news. You were great on recorder, and we have that oboe over there that no one's using. Would you be willing to try oboe?" And he said, yes. And she said, "Okay, we're doing this." So she taught him about everything she could in about 2 months, and she realized she needed help with this gifted student. So she called Roger, who was the principal oboist with the Nashville Symphony, and she said, "Roger, you're going to teach this young man. You're not going to charge him. I'm going to drive him from Antioch to downtown Nashville on Tuesdays. I'll be there at 4 o'clock every week, and you're going to give him his reads for free." And he said, "Okay." So flash forward now, Rex makes honor band, and then he makes all state, and then he comes bopping into her office one day, and you know how high school students come back to see their middle school teachers, and he goes, "Guess what, Miss Friend? I'm going to audition for Curtis. I want to go to Curtis." And she's thinking, "Oh my God." So Curtis Institute, if you get accepted, you go for free, and it's meant to fill the Philadelphia Symphony. And so it's a big deal. And he would be competing. They take 2 oboists a year, and he would be competing with doctoral candidates from all across the country in order to get into Curtis. What I didn't tell you about Rex was that he was living in a shed with his parents behind someone else's house at the time. They had no money. He didn't even have papers. She had to call Jim Cooper, our Congressman Cooper, and badger him to get Rex's papers so that he could even apply. And all the time she's saying, "I can't dash his dreams. I've got to figure out a way to get him up there." And Rex, have you thought about MTSU? Have you thought about Vanderbilt? Have you thought about Have you thought about other places in state? Because what she didn't want to tell him is, you don't have a chance of making that, buddy. Well, so she bought 2 Greyhound bus tickets and rode 14 hours one way with Rex. They didn't have money for a hotel room. She packed sandwiches and took them with them on the bus so they would have food. And he bopped into his audition. And as he was going in, he looked back to her and he goes, "I got this." And he comes bopping out and he said, "I've never played any better, Miss Friend. I think I'm going to get in." And she's like, "Oh God, I'm going to have to ride 14 hours and dash this kid's hope." Well, about an hour on the bus, after they'd been on the bus riding back, he gets a call and he got accepted to Curtis. Flash forward, he just graduated from Curtis with a 4.0. He's playing all over the world now. And this is a kid who was just like every other kid you're going to teach. And what the difference was, maybe every student is not as talented as Rex, but a great teacher can change the trajectory of students' lives. And I would submit to you that is remarkable. But every one of those teachers that you named at the beginning of this session would do the same thing for you if they could. So level up. Do the things that you can do right now. Make your brand, do those things so that you can become the Linda Friend to the Rex Chape. Because you really are changing lives. Check out his YouTube, Rex Jape. He's got a thing of several of the Hindemith variations. It's pretty incredible. So the last thing I would share with you is the importance of thank you and the importance of gratitude. This is another way to level up, my friends. And I say this in honor of every college professor that I ever rolled my eyes to, and there were a few. Thank God they were more patient with me than I was with them at the time. But gratitude is the simplest, most powerful way to acknowledge another person's value and humanity. You've all drunk the Dr. Tim Kool-Aid. You love him, don't you? He's fantastic. And he spends about half the time thanking the other people and shining the light on other people. It's never about him. So an NBC State of Kindness poll found that 78% of respondents would forego a 10% raise if they could have a kinder boss who would just say thank you. So let's talk about reviewing. What are some of the major ways you can level up? Will you jump in the chat and share with me? What are some of the things? Love your students. Show them integrity and work ethic, gratitude, being unafraid to ask for help. There you go, Laura. Never give up. Be tenacious. Be courageous by asking for help. Ask for help and then go out of your way to show appreciation and gratitude. There you go. That's exactly right. And if you can do these things, a little bit of kindness and humility goes a long way. If you can do these things, then you're going to level up, because not other people, every other people, they're not going to be able or willing to do this. So just reviewing, no cheat codes. There are no cheat codes, but you can level up. Your great teachers, the things that you see a need, feel a need, Malia. Your great teachers, what do you remember about them? Do you think it was an attitude or skill? And you said attitudes become skill, that becomes skill. What is your brand? Ask yourself the question, look in the mirror. When people see my face, what do they think of? What is your brand? Be brave and ask for help. This is a noble profession. What Linda Friend did for Rex Jape and what every teacher does. Every single teacher you've had would have been willing to do that for you if they saw that you could achieve what he did. And the importance of paying it forward and thank you. So there's going to come a time when you'll have that knowledge and there'll be a young teacher who will come to you and you're going to be able to pay that forward because you're going to be able to say someone else helped me. And then the last thing that I would share with you is thank you for being here today. There's a whole wealth of places you could have been during this time. And I promise you, if I can ever assist you, please reach out. It'll allow me, you'll be doing me a favor to allow me to pay forward what's been given to me. A lot of people helped me, and I have a list of mentors. Alfred Watkins, Richard Saucedo, Joanne Hood, the list, Paula Kreider, the list goes on and on and on and on. But the caveat is that you have to pay it forward when it's your turn. Here's my contact information. And if there's anything I can do, please let me help you support. Conn-Selmer wants to support you. I think you've seen that based on the last 2 days. And Nola Jones wants to help you if she can. Tom, I'll come to your school anytime. Let's get through this and we'll figure it out. We'll do it 2D or 3D, either way. You bet. We've got time for about one more question, or we can link arms and sing Kumbaya. Hey, thanks so much for being with me. Level up. Have a great rest of your 2 days and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. Thank you, friends.